All right, we are live. Welcome to Just Engaged University podcast. I am your host, Giovanna Burgess-White, and I have some amazing guests today on our podcast, Drew and Erin Coles. How are you?
We're doing well,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for joining from New York. I'm very excited to actually have you guys on. We haven't had any guests since May due to COVID. We've just really been educating our viewers, our listeners. And if, as you know, Just Engage University, the podcast is kind of a platform for couples that are planning a wedding and the wedding industry just kind of coming together. Mm-hmm. And when I heard about your story and who you are and what you do, I thought this would be such a just a great bonus and an add-on podcast for all of our listeners and watchers. So with that being said, I would love for y'all to introduce yourselves and let them know what it is that you do.
Yeah. Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, we are a couple from New York, and we when we got engaged, we were on the hunt for a wedding band, and then in that process, we found that there was nothing quite right for us. It was perfect for us in a budget, because real talk, budget is a very big consideration for all of us, especially in a time like now. There's something that quite fit our needs exactly. So I asked Erin, at the time we were both in master's programs doing different things, and I asked her if she would be okay with taking another leap with me to start a business around wedding bands. I was doing a lot of that kind of work at the time as well, and ever since then we have been fostering this business, which is to give a very quality experience to all of our couples, specifically directed at what they would hear on a recording. So the level of energy that they would see at a concert, but with premium musical talent to back all of that up. And we have a lot of fun doing it, and we infuse love into every facet of our business and every correspondence with our couples and other vendors, because we truly love what we do, and we believe that the experience that someone can have at their wedding can be very love-filled, and it can be something that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And even the email exchanges, I'm sure that people have with Erin, because Erin deals more with our clients and I deal more with the musicians hands-on. Every step of the way can be what we refer to as a musical memory, but some of them are extra musical or not necessarily musical. And we're true believers that the way in which we do business caters to that.
That's fantastic. I love that. And it's important because having a DJ, which is normal, it is great too. You have to have a good selection. You have to meet the person. They have to have that vibe. I mean, I think with any vendor partner in your wedding, the experience needs to go beyond the consultation, needs to go beyond the email exchange, because it's almost like you're bringing a family together to reflect both the couple's personalities, and it's such a short period of time. Like, you plan so far in advance for this one small day that you can't recreate. And the power of music, the power of live music, and just, again, being able to create the ambiance and atmosphere for couples and their guests is fantastic. So when did you guys get married, and when did you start this venture?
Yeah, so we got married October 11th, 2014. So we've been married, it's going to be 6 years this October. And we started our business before that because of the fact that we were planning the band to be at our own wedding. So we started the business just over 7 years ago now. So our business birthday is in May.
May 2013 specifically.
Oh, congrats. Well, happy 6-year anniversary.
Yeah, 7 years.
2 months ago.
7 years.
Or 7-year anniversary.
Almost 6 years as a married couple.
Multiple anniversaries.
Yeah, lots of anniversaries.
I dog ear every single one of those pages, so it's a lot to remember.
Today's my anniversary, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I love it. It's crazy that we celebrated on the 14th and the 15th because I always forget which day it is, but it's actually today, but we celebrate both days.
Nice.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah,
just
stretch it
just
out.
Stretch out the celebration. That way you're never wrong. You're really just embracing the moment.
It's an anniversary month.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, perfect. Well, tell everyone really what it is now that you guys are doing and what you've done in the last 7 years. I'm sure you've had hundreds, maybe even thousands of weddings, but I kind of want everyone to know what it is that you do and really go from there.
Yeah. So we provide live music for weddings. So we work as a collective here in New York City. So we have about 50 musicians on our roster altogether. And what we do is mostly, I'd say the biggest thing that we do is really create that party atmosphere for the wedding. So we provide between 8 to 12 piece bands typically for the celebration. We also provide ceremony music and cocktail hour music. And I mean, since we started, we kind of put certain things in place that are just really important to us, like excellent customer service is one of the biggest things. It's just super important for us to take care of our couples, especially now. And
Definitely.
the other piece is like high quality, talented musicians with really, really awesome music. And another piece is just really encouraging a really great flow throughout the evening. So we know that as the band, that's one of the biggest parts of our job, is making sure that the couple can just relax and enjoy and have fun, and that we kind of take care of making sure that everything's moving along and everything happens when it should: speeches, dinner, dancing, all of those things.
A whole bit.
So we kind of like put those pillars in place of what we really found important right from the beginning, and have just been doing that over the years. We were going to hit our 500th wedding this year.
Yeah.
Not quite going to make it, but we're real close.
We're inching across the line, like one wedding every month now.
So close. Well, we'll
significant.
get into the new norm because you guys seem to be on board with that. But before we get into the kind of the virtual weddings and the new norm of event planning, I always like to ask, any guests that come on and vendors, like, when should a couple be looking at booking bands? Because there's different vendors in your timeline, but I think it's important, and also for wedding planners that are listening, that want to book bands, like, when would that be a good time in a couple's timeline?
Yeah, I think what I would say is that we find most of our couples end up booking us around the same time that they book a photographer or videographer. So typically they have the venue first, and then the planner if they're choosing to book a planner, and then next comes photo, video, and music.
Okay.
So we tend to book up. I mean, it's funny and it's changed over the years, but anywhere between 6 months to 2 years out. It just depends on when our couples are getting married. So I would say if it's a busy season in, normal times, typical times, anything in the summer or the fall books up really fast.
Yeah.
So if you're having a wedding in one of the busy wedding seasons, I'd say probably book a little sooner, closer to the 1.5 to 2 year mark. If it's in winter time, or especially here where we are in New York, a lot of people are afraid of getting married in the winter, of course, because of the snow. But if you are getting married in the winter, we definitely don't book up as fast during those times. So you can do that a little closer to your wedding, like 9 to 12 months, I'd say.
I mean, there's definitely some cues that you can take from the organizational style of the couples themselves. So if they're really hands-on, they're really super organized, we might see a booking with a date that's about 2 years away. If they're sort of waiting to the last minute, but they realize finally that the band is very, very important to them, then we might see a wedding that's 9 or less months away. And it's a very wide range. And I would assume that there are some budgetary components in that as well. Like if a couple has enough savings to make a wedding happen in a year or less. I mean, we waited about 2.5 years after we got married to engaged after we were engaged to definitely tie the knot. But some folks are on a different timeline, and no matter what you were saying, what Erin was saying about the vendors that we're viewing as sort of like booking peers, that's spot on. Somewhere after the venue and before the photographer, and sometimes we actually are right alongside the venue as well, which is really interesting. So they'll ask us, do you have these dates open, because we're going to check with our venue, and then they'll confirm with the venue and then sign a contract with us.
That's important, especially if you're doing indoor too, because a lot of places don't have the space outdoor or vice versa, outdoor indoor. So it does play hand in hand. And are you only in your local local New York market, or do you guys also book bands all over the US?
we book in the Northeast, about as far down as Georgia, as goodness gracious, as far down as Virginia, and up to Maine, up to northern New York, and then over to Michigan as well. But it's all centralized here in the city. So if you get a band from us, first of all of those musicians will have come through me personally training them. And also, one important thing to note about our group and our business is that we only play weddings. We play no corporate events, not ever, at any time. This is a decision we made about 4 years ago to not do anything besides weddings and then really focus. But all of those bands are hopping in a van together or hopping on a flight together and going to your venue from the city, from here in Manhattan.
Great, that's fantastic. And that's important because that is a very niche market. You know, weddings versus corporate things, two completely different things. And I can definitely understand when you're training and you're booking these bands and you're making sure that they're really being the example of your business, your model, your mission, that you want to make sure that everyone's in tune. And you know, dealing with corporate, you're not really dealing with, you're dealing with someone who's in charge of event planning versus, you know, couples who they really want to make sure their day is a reflection of whatever it is that they pick. So I love that. Let's move into the new norm and virtual weddings. As everybody knows, I am a pioneer of always trying to move forward. Here at Mia Bella, love always wins, so we're not going to let COVID really not make events happen. We are trying to make sure that we still are in CDC compliance. We've been doing pop-ups all summer. We have integrated virtual streaming or live streaming, however you want to call that, which for a lot of people, it's still new. They don't know, they don't understand. And so we've done a series of podcasts of just starting to embrace the new norm and sending out RSVP, save the dates as in person. Would you be comfortable RSVPing in person, or would you be comfortable RSVPing in, you know, virtually? And those conversations for some couples, especially like parents, are like, that's so tacky. Like, I can't believe you would do that. But that is the new norm because we can't have these large weddings of, you know, in Houston right now or in Texas, you know, over 100, but, you know, different parts of the US. And obviously this is a worldwide pandemic. So we are trying to still move forward, and we have done it where you can have a pop-up wedding, you can have a small wedding, you can even go to CDC regulation and have, you know, whatever your county states, and still have 50, 75, 100, 200 people. At this point, you can open up your list to the 300 you wanted, and you can strictly just invite them virtually, and they're still there. They're not missing out on anything. The ceremony, the introductions, the cake, we've kind of restructured the timeline, the cake, the toast, and then the live stream's over, and the couple can really enjoy the friends and family who are here. And that's something, it's like a second sort, it's like another video. It's videography. They get that link. If someone missed it live, it's theirs forever. So we've really been pioneering that new norm. And so I kind of want to hear what you guys have been doing, because I know that you've moved forward too and have been giving advice to couples. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. First of all, I love what you have been doing. That's really amazing that you've just been like, what can we do? Let's figure it out. Let's make it work. I mean, that's all we can do right now. So I guess New York and the tri-state area has been very strict since the beginning. So we were put on like total lockdown right away. And we couldn't do anything. They didn't even open events in New York. What was it? Until just a few weeks ago.
What do you expect?
So what we did is, for any of our clients that were looking to move their weddings, like postpone their large celebrations, but continue a small ceremony just with family, socially distanced kind of a situation, we were offering that Drew would actually play piano for their ceremony virtually. For us in particular, virtually, and the way that there's always a little bit of a lag and all that stuff, it wasn't really possible for us to bring in musicians virtually to create something together unless we recorded them separately ahead. So this was sort of our solution to create that beautiful musical moment and memory for them, so they still had live music. So they didn't have to compromise on that, but could be virtual. So that's what we did. We did our first one in April. And then we just did our first in-person wedding since the quarantine happened at the last weekend of June. So that was a really cool experience.
Definitely.
I mean, especially after so many months being so strict in this area of being inside, and being around your immediate family or your significant other continuously for so long. Which is it's not easy, but everyone had to do it, and it was beautiful to see people really come together. And I mean, the dance floor was absolutely packed, which we weren't too surprised because that's kind of what we do. You know, we kind of specialize in that. But it was really,
I think the clients were surprised.
Yeah, the clients were surprised. The guests were surprised that they were all like, we're doing this. But it was really, really fun. So what we're doing is taking our normal like 8 to 12 piece and offering for clients that have currently booked a package with us, if they're not postponing their large celebration and doing just a smaller wedding in general this year, we're offering some smaller package options to help with the caps on how many people can be in a venue space at this time.
Yeah, and those are two of the options. Those are two of the things that we're doing, and we should mention a third. So the first of them was to have me Zoom with you, Skype with you. Actually, Facebook Messenger was the cleanest and clearest audio and video quality, interestingly enough, of all the things that we tried.
That's great to know. Yes.
It's wild, and it's so accessible. So you don't have to pay a fortune for it. So that's the first thing that we did. The second thing, in-person event with a reduced group, which was very, very fun and brought us back. Yes. I say in a recent post that we did that I dropped the word regular, that it felt very regular, that we were coming into the same issues about spacing of the band layout and making sure that we have all the things plugged in and where the case is going to go. And then I was quickly reprimanded by the other musicians saying, this is nothing like regular, but it is hilariously familiar. How we're falling back into the same slots. And then the third thing that we're doing is we're in the process of putting together what we can only describe as an end-to-end virtual wedding. So from beginning to end, we'll play an entrance, and recording the line separately, an entrance, then the first dance, then some parent dances, whatever shape that that folks are having those, and then a couple of dance sets. We plan to include a hora as well, and then have some spaces for toasts, and then have a conclusion all within about 45 minutes of YouTube time. And it's a really interesting third iteration of this project for those who still won't be able to get their family members together, or are in fear that by the time that they actually do get to have their wedding, they may lose a few family members, and they want to have some type of a celebration with them in that time. So those are the three sort of camps in which we're falling into right now.
I love it. I mean, again, finding the solution to a problem that's not going to go away anytime soon. Mm-hmm. It's a mindset change. It's also an education and communication change. Everyone keeps on saying, like, when we go back to normal, and that's the thing. It's just it's not going to go back to normal. So what can we do to still make it happen? And you can still have. I mean, we've proven that you can still have your wedding with every element. I mean, every element. That we're even like doing these amazing, we have a vendor here that's just the boxes that you can send to your guests virtually, and they can have anything from, monogrammed glasses with bottles of champagne, like what, if you want to have a little party hat, like there are, I would say 25% of our industry has moved forward with the new way of thinking, but it also comes with education and then testing it, which you guys have already done, and then creating what filling in the gap with what else is needed. So just like here at the venue, we're able to do the smaller gatherings. We're already preparing for when we can go a little bit larger and a little bit larger. But we came up with the concept of planning your wedding, no matter when, now, next year, 2022, planning with options A through D. Option A being where we are now. Most places are still at 10 people or less. Option B would be that sweet spot of 25 to 50. Option C would be, 50 to 100. And then option D being it goes back to 100% capacity. It may not be normal because we're still going to have these guidelines and regulations.
Of course.
And it's really hard. I mean, it really is hard for couples to go, but why can't I just wait? Or couples who are like, no, I do want to jump on this and I do want to plan my wedding. And so it sounds like you guys are doing the exact same thing in the music world. So it's just finding the people who are doing it and then spreading that word, because I'm only one person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my partner Yvette is one person. She's in the planning industry. I have the venue, and it's like, how do we get this out to other venues, other planners? How do you get this out to other, you know, musicians or people in the same industry business that you're in, and say, how can we replicate that and do that, you know, on the other side of the country? How do we do that in Texas? And so I think it's really important that this is talked about, because it is, and not just for weddings. This is conferences, events. I mean, the music industry. I mean, we are in Texas. Austin has, you know, it's horrible. Like, it's almost like Austin has no soul. New Orleans has no soul. Like, there is no music being played in the South when we're used to South by Southwest. We're used to these festivals. So there has to be people like us who can pioneer the new norm. And so I really think what you guys are doing is amazing. And I know that this is great for all those couples out there who want to have live music. I mean, why can't you have it? Why can't you have the cake? Why can't you have the food? Why can't you have the music? Yeah, you can have the DJ and the live music, when maybe before, which we talked about budget at the beginning, there are still a lot of couples who may have had a larger budget and now someone got laid off. Maybe they both got laid off. Maybe situations have changed to where now you can have a 50-person wedding and have the live music and have the DJ and have the plated dinner, when if you would have had it with 200 people, guess what? That would have never been, we would have had to be trimming somewhere. So it's good to do this. It's healthy to move forward. Is there any other things that you guys kind of want to talk about that you're doing? I know that we'll have this on YouTube, so we'll definitely have all your information in the show notes to where people can find you. We'll have it on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, anywhere where people listen to podcasts. And then this will be live on the Just Engaged University Facebook page. But what other things did you guys want to include? Things that you're doing, maybe things that you're seeing since you're in New York, we're in Texas, that you would want to share with our listeners and our watchers?
Yeah. Great
question. I think I definitely want to share our weekly episodic.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I
love it.
It's a weekly episodic show that we have where we essentially talk about our experience, give tips, and we also funnel that information into a blog that we host on our website. But especially since the event that we played at the end of June, we've been talking every week about a different aspect of that event. This most recent one that we posted yesterday, we talked about how people may have impediments in traveling to the actual venue, because we've had a number of situations over the past couple of weeks in which we've tried to order through Uber, Lyft, other car ride sharing services, and the cars just haven't come, or they've the things we've taken for granted in the past that we would normally leave until right before we step out the door. They've heavily impacted our travel plans. Luckily, we've had ways around them, but that's what we do every single Monday. We'll talk about a new issue. We've talked about other issues from let's say February before. We would talk about things like song inspiration, or including certain inspirations in the musical planning process, or considerations for having your wedding outside that you may think about, or had an offsite ceremony. Talked about as many things as we possibly could. And we're going to continue doing that, but we're definitely week by week talking, scratching away the layers at what having a wedding right now can look like, and the other things that you would need to think about and plan.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's things happening now that we have to tweak every week, you know.
Absolutely.
Where we thought, you know, in April when we started doing pop-up weddings we're in July now. It's like, you know what? Nope, we that's too much work. It's taking too much time. Or especially technology, you know, issues. It's like, okay, how do we make sure this doesn't happen the next week and the following week? And it's good to share that for people who may not be ready to plan yet. But I do feel like, you know, this fall is where the change is going to be in the planning, where couples are thinking about planning going forward. I think this summer people really did think we were going to go back to normal by the end of this year, and they're like, oh, we'll just wait it out. Now it's like we've gone through a season, and now the time for change is there. And there's been enough people in our industry testing it out. Hopefully it's other people out there like us who are sharing this information with couples. And if not, hopefully we can be the inspiration for anybody in the wedding industry that's going, you're not going through this alone. Like couples aren't going through this alone. The wedding industry is not going through this alone. We also have been really good about educating couples on like why we can't refund. Like that is something that's extremely important that they need to understand, because we have businesses. Even if you don't have a venue, I mean, if you're a photographer, if you're in the music industry, we've already spent the time to plan it. We're now giving you a date that we could have given another couple, next year, end of this year. And no, we're not trying to take your money, and no, we're not trying to not have your event, but we understand that nobody knew this was going to happen, but you also, it's because no one ever talked about it. No one ever talks about money, but it's important because
very important.
This is how we will be here next year. And we've seen a lot of businesses go out of business. A lot of, the industry has food, DJ, everybody has suffered, photographers, videographers. So we have to stand together as a community, as an industry. And it's almost like this is our time to serve both the couples and the wedding industry, and it's a movement. I say it's like the wedding industry movement. Yeah. And it's really hard when there's only a handful of people talking about it. And then it's also really hard when there's people in our industry saying that they can do something that we obviously know can't happen. I mean, I see it. People are booking weddings this year, early next year. Oh yeah, we can go to full capacity, and taking couples money. And I'm like, we can't live like that. I get we have to pay the bills, but it's also being educated, being informed. So we'll definitely have your blog on our show notes and available, because the more we can, I guess, feed the brain with the healthy versus what's, going down the rabbit hole of reading the horror stories or what's not happening. I think it's important that we start to bring out kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel, because events are happening. You're doing them there, where it's completely different here. And we're hoping that other people in other cities, states, and in the countries that still haven't even reopened can know that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your plan A through D. That's amazing. I think that's so smart. And I mean, we don't know everything, but now that we've experienced a wedding and we've played so many, and we're consistently talking to other vendors and so many clients, we're always happy to help. We try to pull out information as much as we can, or push out information as much as we can that's applicable to people everywhere. I mean, we have our tri-state experience over here, but it doesn't mean that it's not applicable to everyone. And I also just want to say we're so open to helping. If someone does want to reach out to us, I know you have our Instagram handle there. You can feel free to reach out. You can email us. You can comment on our blog, or anything you want to do. If you have questions, we'll help in any way we can, because that's all we can do right now, is really just be there to help each other and support each other and try to make the best of a really tricky situation.
Really tricky. And we'll try to live loudly. That's what you're saying as well, is that we all just talk about everything that we're doing and make it as accessible to everybody, because without talking about it, it'll go away in the shadows and it'll make people feel isolated, and they're never alone.
Yeah. No, I really think that getting through this and finding the new norm and embracing this change is gonna, if we can get through this, we can get through anything else. And it's just making sure that we are talking about it, and that we always say, our listeners, our viewers, it's important, send it to us. Like, what we can talk about our experiences, but there could be something, like you said, that we don't know that's happening or already did happen, or maybe somebody at your wedding did something that worked and nobody knows about it. Let us know, because we can research, we can, ask the questions, we can reach out to, to you, and you can give me information, saying, vice versa. And we can have a whole podcast, a whole blog. Like, there's just so many things that we can do to just keep educating on the new norm. So it's such a pleasure having you. Is there anything else you would like to add, or advice, or quote, or anything that you want to leave our listeners and viewers with?
It'll happen. It'll happen for you. Just remember that. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
It will happen.
Love
the
is
wedding
not
will
canceled.
happen. You will get married. Memories will be made. It'll all be okay.
Yes. Love always wins. That's what we say here at Mia Bella. We're not going to let this defeat us. Well, Erin, Drew, it was wonderful having you both on. Again, if you're listening to us, go to the show notes. You'll be able to find all their information. If you're watching us on our live or on YouTube, we will have information in the show notes as well. It was a pleasure having you both. And I would love to have you guys back on. Let's maybe think one more season so that you can share experiences. Maybe we come back in the fall, right before the holidays, and just kind of do a recap and see how everything's going in your area. And I would love to share more experiences with our couples.
Oh, we would love that. And thank you so much for having us today. We really appreciate your time, and we're excited. Excited to talk to you again.
We are too. Thank you so much.